Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dynamics of the Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to Professor James Moriarty, Napoleon of Crime, and archnemesis of Sherlock Holmes. I am your slightly less than bubbly host today, Madeline Quiñones, and I am joined by my lovely co-host,
Dixie Parkinson.
And I'm going to be way less energetic today, guys, because it turns out that, we are recording on the 1st of October, and fall is, or rather, I should say fall in the Northern Hemisphere, is the busy season for my company. So I have been putting in overtime, and I am so tired. But this is also our best chance to finally record this episode, which we have been meaning to do for a month, something
like that.
Because this was supposed to be a summer event recap, and it is the 1st of October today. But things were happening, and there was also something that we were wanting to do that didn't end up working out for this, and so it's just time to get it done. And at this point, let's just talk about all the events this year. All of them, not exactly, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. And I'm sorry to Dixie for changing the script on her like this. Not that there was one. We never have a script. I'm sure you can tell. But first off, let's talk about some housekeeping, because we were talking earlier this week about the possibility of moving to audio only, which would make life so much easier for Dixie. And also, hopefully, if we were on iTunes and Spotify and what have you, I'm totally failing to remember all the major podcast players. Hopefully we'd be able to get in a bigger audience. And at the same time, hosting costs money. This is why we're on YouTube in the first place, because YouTube hosting is still free. So it's going to cost money. And also, Zoom Pro account. It is going to be time coming up to renew that, and that's expensive. That's expensive. I mean, definitely it's worth it to be able to actually interview other people, and there are lots of nice things that come with the Zoom Pro account, but it is pricey. So we are I'm gonna start seriously researching how to get a Patreon set up to try to help offset those costs. And what I do figure is that if we set the Patreon for $5 a month, if just 5 people became patrons at $5 a month, that would actually really quickly help tremendously.
Yeah.
And if we got more people signing up for that, then maybe we could even do things like get better recording equipment.
Yeah.
Because right now we're just relying on our computers. And it would be awesome to have proper microphones. We are definitely never going to be as fancy as I Hear Sherlock Everywhere, because they've actually got soundboards so that they can play sound effects and music in real time. And I'm just whoa. And honestly, I don't even have room for that. I'm sure you don't either.
No.
it's never going to be that fancy, but we could at least actually get some better equipment. And who knows? I'm also hoping at 221BCon next year to be able to hand out con ribbons that I don't know, maybe say Team Moriarty or something like that. I think that would be fun. So, and for Patreon rewards, the only idea that I've got, because obviously we have enough trouble trying to record these episodes as it is. We are never going to be able to record extra content.
Yeah.
So the idea is to still have a visual component when we do episodes, to be able to then just upload clips of that. And if you guys have any suggestions about other Patreon awards that we are just not thinking of, please send us suggestions and we will consider them. So, I want to make this worth your guys' while. And also I want this podcast to not wipe us out financially. Yeah. So that's what we've got going on right now, what we're looking into. And just keep following us on Twitter. We are Dynamics of a Pod. And I believe on Facebook, we are Dynamics of a Podcast. So as soon as we have some serious updates in this regard, we will let you guys know on social media. So I'm doing a lot of recapping today. That's what this episode is about. It's an event recap. Oh, so let's just actually, before we jump right into it, you might be wondering, this is a Moriarty podcast. What are you doing talking about Sherlockian events? You know what? It's my podcast. It's our podcast, and we can do what we want. No, seriously though, I know that I have always really appreciated when Sherlockian podcasts do recaps of events and stuff, and I think that it encourages people to want to go to events and things, and that's always what it's done for me. That's why I wanted to go to 221BCon and BSI weekend in New York City and etc. So I think that podcast event recap episodes are important, and if we can get a little Moriarty and Moran in here and there, then it's fine with me.
Yeah.
So jumping right in, this is of course the first year that Sherlockians have been able to go to a lot of in-person events since 2019. So it's been a hot minute. BSI weekend this past January did happen in person in New York City after 1 year of virtual. I think that BSI weekend was the last big Sherlockian event to happen before lockdown. It skirted in right before that started happening.
They're lucky that it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Well, because I think that 221BCon in 2020 was one of the first events to have to shut down. which had to just be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So, so this year, let's see. All I know about are the big ones. There's like lots of other stuff that's been going on, which I only know because I'm friends and also Facebook friends with Monica Schmidt, who like goes to everything. And I'm like seeing her bop around to this and that. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was happening. So yeah, there's BSI weekend in January. And then in March, there is, what is it? Holmes, Doyle and Friends, I think. It's a conference in Dayton, Ohio. And I don't know how long that's been going on, but have been encouraged to come to it. And I think that Dayton isn't that far away, meaning to check this out. But the problem, of course, is that, not just money, but also paid time off. And my paid time off for next year is like already really looking for it. But it is a weekend thing. So like Dayton, Ohio, 4.5 hours. Because like maybe I could, I don't know, I'll have to think about that. But after the conference, Brad Kefauver put on the Watsonian Weekly, did an episode about the conference and included a bunch of clips from people who attended, and that was a really fun listen. So actually one more little bit of housekeeping. I am really going to try really hard, because I do want this to be a nicer podcast. I'm going to try really hard to get caught up on show notes. So this episode in particular is going to have a fair few links in it. So this will include the Dayton episode on the Watsonian Weekly. So that was a thing that happened, and it does sound like fun and very worth attending. I have heard stories about a karaoke session. I've never been able to get the full story. So after that was 221BCon in April, and of course we did a recap episode of that earlier. And that was a lot of fun. And speaking of 221BCon, the hope is to get Crystal Knoll and Heather Holloway on the show to talk about the upcoming 10th anniversary of 221BCon next year. So hopefully we'll actually be able to get them on, because I think that they've been really busy. So fingers crossed for that. Another note about con is that registration has opened up, and so has reservations for the room block at the hotel. So I have already booked a room, and it is a 2-bed room. I booked it in hope. I don't know,
Yeah, we'll see.
I know, but it can't hurt. At least, the 2-bedroom is the exact same price as the king size bed room. So
that's good.
Yeah, that is good. So so there's that. And what else? I think that for then after that, there wasn't anything else big for a while. That is my impression. There was like there were things going on, but nothing like big scale.
Yeah.
Not until the very last weekend of July. The BSI was finally able to hold its next conference. They've been doing this. It's not even a few years now. It's longer than that. They've been doing it since the early aughts, I think. Every 4 years, they've held some kind of conference somewhere, and Sherlock Holmes in the British Empire was actually supposed to happen in 2020. So it was delayed for 2 years, and it finally happened this July at Bear Mountain in New York State. So I knew I was never going to be able to attend, but oh my gosh, when like a lot of my friends did attend and see like when the barrage of photos started to appear on social media, and I'm just like, oh, I want to be there. But the nice thing is that speaking of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, one of the dynamic duo, Bert Wolder, he attended and actually gave a presentation, and I am so sorry, Mr. Wolder. I am totally blanking on what your presentation was. And like, I've even listened to that episode twice. But he gave a lovely recap of the event on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, and included a lot of clips from presenters, and that was just so nice. It was just this really nice capsule of the event, and I think definitely I know that one of the conferences had a book that came out of it, Behind the Canonical Screen. And I hope that this conference produces a book, because it sounded like there was like some really good stuff being presented there. And like with a theme like Sherlock Holmes in the British Empire, I think it's fair to wonder like how that exactly is going to go. But it sounded like people, like there was some really good examination of imperialism and how that affected the countries that Great Britain ruled, and it sounded like a really good conference. So I'm hoping for a book in a year or two.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. And then exactly 1 week later was the reception for Sherlock Holmes in 221 Objects, the exhibit that was originally hosted by the Grolier Club in New York City earlier this year. And then after some time, moved down to Bloomington, Indiana, to be hosted at the Lilly Library in Indiana University, Bloomington, which is the original IU campus. The Lilly Library is also the current home of the BSI archives, and I think that one of the main librarians is herself a member of the BSI. So it was a very natural thing for this exhibit to come to this particular library. And Sherlock Holmes and 221 Objects is an exhibit of a bunch of books and artwork and memorabilia from the collection of one Mr. Glenn Moranker, who is himself a member of the BSI, and also like one of the world's biggest Sherlock Holmes collectors. He has like, I don't even remember how many original manuscripts he has, but it's like he has manuscripts more than one. Those things are freaking expensive. The original manuscript for the Greek Interpreter just sold for more than $200,000, which then, like, I guess there's like a fee added on to that. So in the end, it ends up costing like more than $300,000, something like that. No, that is like twice. That's twice my mortgage, basically. So yeah. He put together this collection to tell the story of Arthur Conan Doyle writing Sherlock Holmes, and from studying Scarlet to Hen of the Baskervilles, and it's very cool. I went to the reception. It was great. It was so exciting. And I met Mr. Moranker, who is a lovely gentleman, the very definition of a gentleman and a scholar. And this is the Grolier Club published this book, which is a catalog of the exhibit. And this thing is this is super sturdy, and it is the most incredible, I think, book that I've ever seen. It's just gorgeous. And it, like, part of the exhibit are definitely several original illustrations by Frederick Dorr Steele, and at least a couple of illustrations by Sidney Paget. And it's just amazing because I never, let's see how well I can show it there, but I've never seen these illustrations in this kind of beautiful detail. There were colors that hadn't shown up on scans that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, I didn't know that those colors existed in this artwork. Just absolutely wonderful. But yeah, I got him to autograph it. He was very sweet and obliging. So that was very exciting. This book it's like the original run was like $60, and I didn't get the original run, and it cost like $80 later. But it feels like an $80 book. It really does. And I think it's worth it, especially, you know, it's entirely impossible for you to have made it or make it to see this collection. This seriously does a very good job of displaying those things in print for you, having both, you know, seen the collection in person and also seen it in print. It's really an awesome book. but the exhibit itself was pretty awesome. And yes, I've never seen a Sidney Paget in real life before. I've never seen a Frederick Doris Steele in real life before. And he's like, Steele is my favorite Sherlockian illustrator, at least my favorite classic Sherlockian illustrator. That was just so wonderful. And a big part of Mr. Marinker's collection is actually pirated Sherlock Holmes books. And so there were quite a few of those in this exhibit. It is really funny, just like the weird things that that pirate publishers did with like the cover art and stuff, you know, just absolutely wacky things. And also, it makes me wonder now if so the Sign of the Four was available in the US through pirated editions before an official edition was ever published. And I wonder if the pirate editions, especially since they were always cheaper, I wonder if that had something to do with the official publications kind of lack of popularity, if that really impacted the sales.
Yeah.
It could be that the Sign of the Four was actually a much more popular story in the US than was previously thought, and we just don't know because the official edition sold poorly, but I think there were a lot of pirated editions out there. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a reception with some really good food, and I ended up pulling a Fran Fine and like wrapped up a scone and stuck it into my book bag. The scone actually turned out to be a good idea later because I was delayed in getting to dinner. So yeah, some like very fancy reception food. And then Mr. Marinker, I keep calling him Mr. Marinker. It just feels right. I don't know, leave me alone. Then he gave this really great presentation about he just took a look at like 4 different things in his collection, and he he doesn't just like buy stuff up, he also like researches the history of the things that he gets. And in one case that was like tracking down where this one book had come from, because it seemed to have come from a library that never actually existed. So things like that, it was really cool. And also, I think that he tells that story. Or some part of his presentation was he talked about, at least in part, in an interview on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. So we're going to have like a lot of podcast links in the show notes here. But that interview was definitely a great listen, and a very good companion to, better understanding his collection and this exhibit in particular. But yeah, it was really cool. And you know what? Moriarty was present. There was. Actually, I don't know if I'd be able to find it. Of course, this is like one of those times where like I should have thought of this sooner and bookmarked, right? But if I can just find really quickly a photo of William Gillette, the original staged Holmes. Well, maybe not even exactly the original. He might not have been the first Holmes on stage. I think that he wasn't, but he was like the first major Sherlock Holmes actor, And this isn't going to be able to show up well. Maybe I can put the photo. I took a photo of it, so maybe I can put that in the show notes. But this photo of Holmes, Moriarty, and Billy the Page I think it's a promotional photo for, it's for the movie. Okay, yeah, the 1916 movie. And also, he actually had like some of Doyle's notebooks and stuff. So, I don't know if you know the story about the journal entry that he made when he wrote the final problem. Do you know that?
Something about like killed Holmes today or something like that.
Yeah. No, literally killed Holmes. And that's the only thing that he wrote in that journal entry. And he had that. So that was part of the exhibit. Yeah, Doyle had problems. So yeah, that was great. So I got to meet some friends in person who I hadn't been able to meet in person previously, including Rich Quiñones, another Michigan Sherlockian who is unfairly tall. It's ridiculous how tall that man is. He's like 6'3". And I know, you live in the metric system. So basically think of it like.
Don't worry, I know how, like, I actually know the heights better in feet and inches than I know them in centimeters.
Okay. But for anybody in the metric system, that's like actually getting close to like how tall Darth Vader is. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about like being eye level with the mouth grill. Probably. It's not fair. He's 4'11". So yeah. Got to meet him and that was great. Also got to meet, like, for the first time ever, Glenn Moranker, and also David McGregor, who is a playwright, and he's also been writing books, both fiction and nonfiction, and publishing through MX Publishing. And he's also a Michigan Sherlockian. So, well, I mean, the whole thing here was that this was a Midwestern Scion Society gathering. So Sherlockians from all over the Midwest congregated here in Bloomington, Indiana. And that was terrific. It was nice. Of course, Dayton is kind of Midwest. It's Midwest enough. But I missed out on that. So it was nice to have another Midwestern Sherlockian event to go to. And I got to meet Steve Doyle, the publisher of the Baker Street Journal. And also, I think that he's the leader of the Indianapolis, the illustrious clients of Indianapolis, which is, I think that's one of the bigger Midwestern science societies. I got to meet, the thing is, it did not end up being just Midwestern Sherlockians. We actually had a couple of international visitors who were still in the US because they had been at Bear Mountain in New York. So gosh, I asked her to pronounce this for me, and I hope I'm remembering this correctly. Jayantinka Ganguly. We usually call her Jay Ganguly from India. So I definitely remember that the T is softer than like an English T. She was like, a lot of people don't get that. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I get ya. Because like Spanish does similar things. And that was great meeting her. She is, I believe she's the leader of the Pondicherry Lodge, which is the India Science Society. So yeah, she's very cool. And this is so funny. I got to meet Dr. Maria Fleischak from Germany, who is one of the original Baker Street Babes. And actually, the crazy thing was I went up and introduced myself to her, which is, I mean, you know me, and like I would never have done that like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm apparently becoming a confident adult. What? But yeah, I got to meet Maria, and that was so cool. And I was fangirling so hard. I was shocked when I saw her there in the first place because I was totally not expecting that. And yeah, that was just super awesome. I mean, you know, the context here is that the Baker Street Babes was the first podcast I ever listened to. And I fell in love right away. And the Babes did something that that I still haven't really seen in fandom outside of actually the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but even Ash I learned about through the Babes, which is, you know, celebrating being a fangirl. You know, you're a fan and you're a lady and you're proud of it. And that was just so awesome and so reaffirming for me as a young fangirl. And basically it's because of the Baker Street Babes that this podcast exists in the first place. Because I was always like, oh, they sound like they're having so much fun. I want to do a podcast and have fun like that. And years later, here we are. And I get to do this with one of my best friends.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah. So that was very awesome for me. After the library closed, which, oh my gosh, that library is beautiful and it's big, and the campus has a lot of these big, old, beautiful buildings in it. The signage is terrible. It's almost like non-existent. I got lost first trying to find the parking lot, and then trying to find the library, and I like got my phone out and I'm not understanding how the GPS works. And of course, this was a really hot weekend. So like I'm also roasting alive as I'm trying to find the library. I almost got heat stroke a couple of times that day. That was the frustrating thing. It's like I so thoroughly enjoyed, you know, every minute that I was with the other Sherlockians. But when I was on my own was like mostly miserable. Stuff just kept going wrong, including the big black spider in my room that night.
Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, after the library closed, there was a little time in between then and dinner. And dinner was like officially the twin meeting of the illustrious clients and what is it, the Tinkerville Club, I think, of gosh, I am just blanking on everything. It's an Ohio Science Society. So yeah, and I don't know how far they had to come. I know for Indianapolis, Bloomington is about an hour's drive away. So it's a very natural thing, I think, for the clients to go down to Bloomington for things. And oh my gosh, now I'm blanking on the name of the freaking restaurant. It was an Irish pub. It was like the Irish Lion, something like that. It was a really nice restaurant. Excellent house fries. Oh my gosh, I love like a good sit down non-chain restaurant, independent restaurant. Like if you can, always go for the house fries because they're usually gonna be so good.
Yes.
And these were. And yeah, that was fun. It was a little claustrophobic. I was like, why are we packed in this tight? Once I got used to it, I was okay. But at first it was kind of like, I can't breathe. But I got to meet more neat people and yeah, it was a good time. And unfortunately I got in late. And then it was over all too soon. But it was a fun time, and it actually made it my first in-person Science Society meeting. So that was cool. And then after that, Brad Kefauver tried to get together a bigger group, but some people went home because it was only like 8 in the evening, and some people only had like 3 hours to drive.
Yeah.
But Brad and Rich Quiñones and I actually just like hung out in the lobby of Rich's hotel for like an hour or so afterwards and just chit-chatted, and that was nice. That was like a really nice ending to that day. Just hanging out with friends, and yeah. I want a nap so bad. It's like I want to transport myself back to that when I could just relax and goodness. But yeah, and the drive home was something else. I made some mistakes, and also there was weather and all kinds of traffic stuff going on. But I am so glad that I made that trip. And actually in November, I'm going back. I will be going with I will be meeting up with a handful of friends and who were not able to go to the reception. So yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be a nice little trip, and then the week after that, I'm gonna go see a play, and so like it's getting busy again. It's getting busy. It's like I keep thinking before you know it, it's gonna be Christmas, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, seriously, it's less than 3 months now.
Yeah. I don't know where the year has gone.
I don't either. And you know what? I just thought of this because this is October 1st, and I'm sorry, your birthday is Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. So, happy birthday, Dixie.
Oh, thank you.
Oh. So that your birthday always sneaks up on me. Just always. September always just like goes by so fast, and then all of a sudden it's your birthday. I'm like, what? How did that happen? But getting back to August, the next event was not in person. It was virtual, thankfully. Scintillation of Scion, Scintillation 15, and purportedly their last virtual scintillation. So I'm really glad that I was able to be part of this one, because when it's in person, it's in Maryland, and I don't know when I'm ever going to be able to do that. So
and I was able to attend as well because
yeah,
it was virtual.
Yeah, and that was so cool. That was like, wasn't that like your first Sherlockian event, like, period?
Yeah, basically.
That's so neat. So yeah, I know that you weren't there for the whole thing, but what was that like?
It was really fun. I really enjoyed your panel, and then I think the only ones I listened to were yours and Josh Harvey's, which was also really interesting. In between, unfortunately, I think at the time I had work that I was doing in between listening to these, but but Josh Harvey's was really cool, and yours. Well, are you going to get into what the one that you presented, or should I give a quick summary? So
what? Yeah, why don't you do it?
Yeah, okay. So Madeline talked about Sherlock Holmes's age, which we've discussed together before, but it was really cool to hear you lay out all the evidence for why you think that other people are getting his age wrong, and I thought your reasoning was really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, the funny thing was that, like, for Zoom events, it tends to be nowadays that the organizers will like ask the audience to to kind of keep the chat to a minimum sometimes, because that can be distracting to presenters. Well, for me, I had a PowerPoint, and once I opened it up and shared my screen, I had two screens, but both of them were filled up with the PowerPoint, so I wasn't able to see the chat.
Yeah.
It was very odd, because it was almost kind of an isolating experience. But it was good for concentration. It helps me. I think it helps me get through it. And then I had the actual paper on my phone, so I was like reading off of my phone while I'm scrolling through the PowerPoint. And this was my first time actually giving a paper at a Sherlockian event, and the PowerPoint, I mean, I'm really happy with how it looked, for sure. I am less happy with like the actual I feel like I could have done better on the content of it, but at the same time, this was actually my first time trying to translate an essay into a PowerPoint, and it's like, what exactly are you going to pull out of your essay to put on the screen? And so that was very interesting and very different. And and I illustrated it. And that was, so I've actually had this presentation in my head for like over a year now, specifically as a presentation that could be illustrated. And the very first illustration that I thought of was the one with Moran and Irene, where she's threatening him with her foil, and she's saying, "You stay away. I've watched Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows," and I am not an especially. I don't have an especially good sense of comedy. I love a good laugh, but I'm not so great myself at producing jokes. I am reasonably proud of that joke, though. And also, I was really happy with how the illustrations turned out. And like I said, I was isolated from like seeing any of the comments until I was done. And then it's like I saw this flood of comments on the chat. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there's just like so much love here. And I was just like, oh, that made me so happy. So yeah, that was a really amazing experience. And the funny thing, here's the really funny thing, especially because I had literally just met Maria Fleischek just a couple of weeks earlier. So she was at Scintillation, this time from, her home in Germany. And there's a little break that happens during the conference, and it's very cute. It's called the Lesser Hiatus. And so Jerry Margolin and Maria were talking, and I think that's why what happened next happened, because when you go into presentation mode on Zoom, there is still like a drop down of people's camera screens.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the funny thing. You know how it's kind of like one of the tips for giving a speech is to like find somebody in the audience to talk to?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is that I think it's because of the conversation during the break that Maria ended up being at the top of the drop down of screens. So as I'm giving my presentation, I'm actually literally giving it to Maria. That's the worst thing. This sounds so stalkery, I swear. So it's just something that happened. It's so weird. I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. Oh, that was too funny. But yeah, it was a really great conference, and I think, well, it's definitely recorded, and the recording is supposed to be posted online at some point. So when that actually happens, we will share a link, because it is so worth like listening to everybody. It was so cool. And I actually unfortunately missed one of the presentations because real life stuff. But yeah, we started off strong with a presentation by Chris Sorden, who talked about finding the location, the real life location of San Pedro, as presented in the Wisteria Lodge. And his conclusion was that this country that everybody had always assumed was like Latin American is actually on the other side of the world. And it was a really awesome presentation. Just like, wow, that was great. And then afterwards, of course I minimized it. Okay. So after that, Rich Quiñones recited a poem he'd written about the Norwood Builder. And Rich's poems are always so interesting. He's great. After that, Karen Wilson interviewed Bonnie McBird. Bonnie is one of my favorite pastiche authors because she like really gets it's so interesting because I don't think that she actually writes fan fiction, but her books feel like fan fiction, which is that's not a normal thing with Sherlockian novels. So I enjoy her books so much. And she has a new one coming out in either November or December. Well, it's a Christmas novella called What Child Is This? And I am so looking forward to it. And then after that was the presentation that I missed a lot of, unfortunately. So I'm really looking forward to the recording. Ira Mitetsky talked about Sherlock Holmes as the books being published by American publishers. So I assume the legitimate ones. I think it was the legitimate ones. So yeah, I'm going to be very interested to hear the rest of that. Dan Andriaco gave like a little commercial about the Essential Sherlock Holmes Volume 2 coming out, and then there was the lesser hiatus, and then after that, then I came on and did my presentation, which specifically was called Younger Sherlock Holmes. And I also like the cover art. I drew it in. All the illustrations were in the Adventures of Professor Moriarty style, which, by the way, is not dead. It is just itself on the great hiatus. For one thing, I really need to get my own scanner printer before I get into doing comics again regularly. But the title illustration was like my take on the young Sherlock Holmes poster. So that was fun. And then after me came, and I'm so glad I went before they did. But Heather Holloway and Crystal Knoll gave a presentation called Cognitive Dissonance or Hypocrisy, Arthur Conan Doyle's representation of voodoo in Wisteria Lodge. That was so good. And also, they came up with it in 1 week. They were originally going to do something else, and then like they got inspired to do this, and they only had a week to do it. And they came up with a paper that just like blew everybody out of the water. It was amazing. It was really like, and for being something that they came up with in a week, they still like did some really good research. But like there's a lot of comparison and contrast of voodoo as, you know, as it actually is in real life, and comparing that to Doyle's spiritualism. And that was very interesting, for sure. So yeah, oh my gosh, totally worth listening to or watching them do. And then Rob Nunn followed them, and he's like, how do you follow that? But I think that he followed it in like the best way possible, because then he turned around and gave like kind of a parody presentation of to form the amalgam, and basically his presentation proposed that Colonel Lysander Stark, the villain from The Engineer's Thumb, was the template for all other future Sherlock Holmes villains, including Professor Moriarty and also the jellyfish from The Lion's Mane. It was very funny. So much kudos to him. Then there was another commercial by Dana Richards for the book My Scientific Methods from BSI Press. And then Josh Harvey gave his presentation called The Other Doctor in Pursuit of Another Holmesian Forerunner. And so very interestingly, this was like totally outside of Josh's field because he is a music instructor and composer, and does he conduct? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what all Josh does, but he does a lot of music. And he actually interned with Patrick Gowers, who was the composer for the Granada series. And it turns out that Patrick Gowers, I think it was his grandfather. Does that sound right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
That Patrick Gowers' grandfather, Dr. William Gowers, was like, is he a neurosurgeon? He was like,
yes. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah. I feel so bad because Josh also gave me like a preview of it the weekend before, and it was fascinating. But Dr. William Gowers was a contemporary of Dr. Joseph Bell and also Arthur Conan Doyle, and he did the whole observation and analysis thing too, and that was just the whole thing was fascinating.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so one of these days we're still hoping to get Josh on the show to talk about Sherlockian soundtracks, because just the things he can share about that subject are just amazing. But that was a really fascinating paper, and that concluded the scintillation. It almost kind of felt like it was over too soon. But I was so happy to be able to attend it one last time and to actually be asked to do something for it. That was amazing. It was like little me. But yeah, I had a great time, and I got just like so much amazing feedback for my presentation. So that was awesome. I was definitely riding that high for a couple of weeks. And that just about catches us up. The most recent thing to happen actually was in Toronto, Canada. What was that called exactly? This is so ridiculous, I can't believe. Jubilee at 221B. So the Toronto Public Library has an Arthur Conan Doyle collection. It's a very big and impressive collection. And this event was celebrating 50 years of that collection being at the library. And so a bunch of Sherlockians congregated in Toronto, and I was never going to be able to make it because I still have to get my passport renewed. And also paid time off and money. Mm-hmm. But it sounded like a very good time was had by all, and there might have been an I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere preview episode for that. And I'm going to check back through their archive and see if there was, and if there was, I'm gonna put that in the show notes also. But yeah, there's other stuff going on still over the next couple of months, but that was like, I think, really the last big thing for the year. And for some of us now, we just sit tight and look ahead towards BSI weekend 2023, which I will be going to. I will actually be going there. I've got the time off approved. I've got my flight booked, and I'm gonna be rooming with Beth Gallego, who is the webmaster and current head of the John H. Watson Society, and she's awesome. I love her so much. So yeah, I will have I will have somebody to look after me in New York City. I'm very grateful for that. She's done the weekend before, so she knows what she's doing. So that'll be great. But yeah, like, oh my gosh. Definitely I want to try this time to collect some audio clips. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think that, and maybe even some videos, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm so excited. I can't believe I'm actually doing this, because like I've wanted to do this for years and years now. So it's just like, wow. Oh man. So yeah. And I think about a month is when we're gonna start like finding out what's happening and when. So I've just been like a ball of nerves this whole time. I'm gonna continue to be a ball of nerves until like bundle of nerves until those announcements start going live. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that is basic. That's basically the Sherlockian 2022 year in review. Like the year isn't done yet, but that's I think like all the big highlights. There's some various science society stuff that I know has been going on or is going to go on, but that stuff I'm not as familiar with. So yeah, and definitely we're gonna have to have a weekend recap when I get back. And yeah, I'd like to keep on doing these recap episodes because I think that they're fun, and like I said, I think that they're important. So yeah. So like we said at the beginning, we're gonna be looking into starting up a Patreon. So definitely please keep an eye on us on social media. I don't know when we are gonna be able to record again. We are trying to nail down schedules. That's the hard thing. And I mean, it's not easy when we can only do it on the weekends in the first place.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But I've also got some non-interview ideas. Possibility for a Christmas episode coming up. which will be much more Moriarty focused. And yeah, I can't think of anything else. I think we covered everything that I was hoping to cover. So Dixie, any closing thoughts?
I really wish I could be there to attend some of these with you.
I know. I wish you could be too.
Hopefully in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, but yeah. Oh, fingers crossed that you're going to be able to make it one of these days. If not next spring, then, hopefully in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wish so much you could be with me. Well, too, I mean, I want to share things with you specifically, and also I like sharing experiences with other people.
Yeah.
So, well, who knows at this rate? Maybe the next episode will be audio only. Who can say? Who can say? But we'll see what happens with that, and yeah, we will see you guys later. So thanks for watching and listening, and just stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.